The Amazonian has arrived. This is your look at the DC Collectibles Justice League figure number 5, Wonder Woman. DC Collectibles is the award-winning line of collectibles directly from the source, DC Entertainment. The collection includes limited edition statues, action figures, prop replicas, and busts, inspired by DC's iconic characters and stories. Based on unparalleled access to the source material, DC Collectibles delivers master designs and exceptional workmanship. For nearly 20 years, DC Collectibles' commitment to quality and authenticity has been recognized by DC fans worldwide. Everybody ready to be checking out another Justice League release from the folks over at DC Collectibles. This time around, we're going to be checking out Wonder Woman, and of course, before we have a look at the figure, we're going to first figure out how tall the figure stands. Longtime viewer and patron member Devious asked perhaps if Wonder Woman would be the figure that would save this line. No, sadly no, Devious. However, though, before we talk a little more shop about Wonder Woman, the figure stands 6.3 inches in height. Where's this going to go? And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing 16.2, so a little over 16 centimeters tall. Let's get some size comparisons going on in here. We're going to bring in Superman. Superman was the last figure that we had a look at, and just prior to that, we also had a look at the Caped Crusader, Batman. Yes, I still have to have him on a display stand because Batman's got a bit of a wonky ankle. To kind of give you an idea of how these figures stack up with one another, Wonder Woman is notably smaller than both Batman and Superman on either side of her. I guess that is right, because certainly based on the cartoon, Wonder Woman is a little smaller in stature, but she could still probably thwomp both Batman and Superman, although in some episodes, Superman's weakness level increases and decreases. At any rate, though, this is where the figure stacks up with the other figures that we've had a look at, both Batman and Superman on either side of her. Devious and others looking to see if Wonder Woman would have accessories, again, be a bearer of bad news. She comes with squat. Doesn't come with a display stand. No. Doesn't come with a lasso of truth. No, not that either. She comes with absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, though, this is a one figure that I would have hoped could have come with a display stand because standing her is next to impossible. Let's have a look at the figure itself. Now, going back to the fact that she doesn't come with any accessories to speak of, I want everyone to take a good, long look at the fact that she does have a gripping hand. The other hand is a closed fist. In this instance, I actually would have entertained the idea of getting two fist hands as opposed to a teased gripping hand that comes with absolutely no accessories. It's sort of a really awkward pose the way that they've got her hand in as well. It sort of looks like she's trying to balance a whole lot of change and dropping a few dimes and nickels in the process. The hands themselves look a little, I don't know, crooked, like she has some serious arthritis. I don't really like the fact that they gave her a posed hand like this, especially for the fact that she doesn't come with any accessories to speak of. Going back to the other talking point I mentioned as well, look at the size of her feet. They're so tiny, such tiny little elf-like feet that she has on the bottoms of her ankles. It doesn't even help either that she doesn't have any peg holes to speak of. Both Batman and Superman came with peg holes. Wonder Woman doesn't come with any. They could have quite easily put them on the end of her toes right there. There's enough space. I feel there's enough space. Why didn't they take the time and put a peg hole right there? This is a figure of all of the ones that we've looked at so far. Needs rightfully to have peg holes on the undersides, just so you can actually get the figure to stand upright, because she does have some real difficulty. I consider it more a miracle than anything else that I was even able to get her to stand at the beginning of this review. I'm not even sure how I'm going to be able to pull off final looks either, hoping and praying that she's not going to topple over with such small, tiny little children's-sized feet. Anyways, I want to discuss a little bit about Wonder Woman's face. Now, of course, the question was asked, would Wonder Woman be the figure that saves this line? And I guess it could be debatable, as certainly as you're looking at the figure for yourself, your opinion may change from the opinion probably I'm about to state, but I feel like the head is a bit of a train wreck. Now, I have to look at it, and I have to ask myself, is it the train wreck of a sculpt, or is it a train wreck simply of paint? Because I think if I look at the head sculpt on certain angles, it's not terrible, but it does leave something to be desired when you're looking at the paint, especially when they put it around her eye areas. I mean, there's a whole lot of excessive amounts of black. I get the idea that they were trying to pull off some level of eyelashes, but the end result is it kind of looks like she went a little heavy on the eyeshadow. On this eye especially, I don't even know what's happened. Somebody got a little too generous with the black paint and used too broad of a brush to apply that to the side of her face. The end result is she sort of comes across like a bit of a clown. The front of the face, if you're looking at it dead on, straight on like this, I don't think it's a great sculpt at all. Again, it marginally changes a little bit sort of when you look at the side of her head. I mean, if I kind of look at it like this way, it doesn't look too bad. If I sort of look at it like this way, it sort of doesn't look too bad. But straight on, I don't feel it's one of the better head sculpts. If anything, I feel like it could be one of the worst. One of the things I certainly was discussing in one of the premieres that we had on this channel was I wonder if perhaps DC's Collectibles' goal when it came to releasing the Justice League release figures was that they were trying to give us modernized versions of the original Mattel figures. Because if I still had that figure, unfortunately I don't, putting a Wonder Woman here next to imaginary Mattel Wonder Woman right here, I feel like this would be an upgrade, only in really paint slightly, and more articulation, because of course that's going to be something we're going to talk about in a second. I don't feel like it's close enough to the cartoon at all. Again, I feel like it's closer more to the Mattel original release, right down to the sculpting of her hair as well. The back of the hair is pretty good. I like the way that they've sculpted this, given a little bit of a point at the bottom and side point on the side of her hair. They use a nice dark black paint. Yeah, there are a few little areas there. Yeah, you can see some imperfections to the plastic. But that hair sculpt is good from the back. But I don't think there's nearly enough of it on the front. She has this really far parted hair, like she's really combed it back, or the tiara that she's sporting has really lifted back the hair. In the cartoon, Wonder Woman tends to have more bangs sort of draping forward. And I feel like it's been pulled off better, successfully at least, in other Wonder Woman releases. I don't really know what's going on with the hair. Like I said, the hair should be a little further forward than what it is. But it's definitely not a good head sculpt at all. I mean, some of the good things that they did do, of course, was they painted the little star earrings. That's not messy at all. There's none of that gray that's carried on to the coloring of the plastic. As a plus, I feel also that Wonder Woman has better looking skin tone, for example, than, let's just say, Batman. We'll bring him in for a second. It seems like, again, if Batman maybe had the same color scheme of flesh that Wonder Woman had, I think it might have made the figure look a little bit better. The paint on the rest of the body as well, which we'll talk a little bit more extensively in a second, generally is again quite clean. The busted area here, very clean on the red, very clean on the yellow or gold color. Of course, you've got the trademark Wonder Woman logo stretched across her chest, and an equal amount of that gold also added to the belt area as well. Then, of course, she does have the stars there on her trunks. Both, well, not on the back, unfortunately, only on the front. Unfortunately, this is also one of the big problems with this particular figure is her thighs. For some strange reason, let me just move her arms up just so you can get a better look at it. Yes, everybody gather around and look at Wonder Woman's hips. This one hip isn't so bad. It sort of continues the trend of the shape that they start at the top of her waist. This other side, though, I don't know what has happened. It also happens to be a case where this leg pops off way too frequently. I don't know if that is glue on the inside. It shouldn't really be glue, obviously, because that wouldn't allow the leg joint to move. If I straighten this out completely as best I can, and I pop this back on the peg, just like this, it always doesn't seem like it's still lined up properly. I don't even know what, again, I'm doing wrong here, but it's like that peg joint just doesn't sit far enough in, and it looks like she's got a broken hip. No matter all the times I try to do this, no matter all the times I try to fix this, it still continues to be an issue. Wonder Woman has some really wonky looking side leg here. This leg, again, isn't so much the issue. It's the other leg that, again, is an absolute train wreck. Well then, humbled reviewer, why don't you tell us what you really think of this figure? This figure, much like all the other Justice League releases, had potential, but yet again I feel with the lack of accessories, the teasing the fact that they actually gave you a hand that is designed to be holding something and yet comes with nothing, and the fact that she has problems standing and they didn't throw in a display stand is all things that of course you can dismiss. But like the head sculpts on these figures, I still feel Batman perhaps could be the best of the lot. It's just a shame that Batman had a really wonky ankle. And again, like the quality on these, it leaves me questioning some of the designs on these. Like again, the one leg isn't so much the issue. But again, what's going on with this leg right here? I just can't get that completely straight. Leveling that off as best I can. Again, putting this back. I know you've already seen this. But putting this back on the peg, I don't know what's going on here at all with the leg. It's just completely off. As for the rest of the paint, we'll talk a little bit more of the positives. The paint's generally quite clean here. The little banding of white along the top of the boot and striping down the middle is still clean. Don't have any real issues there, as well as also the little bracelet gauntlets that she has on her wrist. Pretty clean. No issues there. I maybe would have enhanced the coloring a bit here on the bust area of her torso. Maybe make that just a little brighter of a red. Other than that, though, I mean, the colorings aren't that bad at all. The plastic, again, for the choice that they used for Wonder Woman, probably could have been a color that they should have used also for Superman and Batman. Again, bringing in, we just already looked at Batman. We'll bring in Superman here just for a second, so you can sort of see. I mean, looking at the two, it almost comes across like Superman's got more jaundice in his skin. I think they all should have followed the same suit and used this exact same color of plastic. And yet, for some strange reason, we'll have to kind of keep in mind this when we look at the Flash. For all reasons, I don't know why, they all have different colors to their plastic of skin, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As for the figure's articulation, we'll go ahead and look at that right now. The head does rotate back and forth. Limitations, of course, will arise. The fact that she does have this hair that sticks out. It doesn't limit it too much when it comes to rotating her head back and forth, but it certainly does limit it when you want to bring her head much farther up. I mean, they literally have contoured the hair to the back of her torso and limit any at all chance of actually being able to lift the head any further than just that. The arms rotate all the way around. Well, again, somewhat. You have to kind of get it around the hair. And they also hinge out at almost a 90-degree angle bend. The arms also bend at the elbow area here. I'm not going to say too much about the joint on the elbow. Again, it kind of looks off, but again, based on how they had to get that all constructed and allowing it to be able to do this, there sort of has to be a workaround to that. Sort of causes the elbow, the arm joint, to kind of look like the forearm is shifted, like she's broken it. Hands rotate all the way around, and you can also hinge them back and forth. She doesn't have any sort of waist articulation, just simply by the way that she's sculpted. And then when we get to the legs, unfortunately, we'll just move our arms up here. The legs do have a hinge joint, so you can hinge those out. You can move them back and forth. I've already got sort of the dinner bell thing going on with the legs here for Wonder Woman. Come on, everybody. Dinner's ready. Come on, kids. Pork chops and mashed potatoes tonight. Unfortunately, she does have a little bit of loose legs there. Bend at the knee, and you can't rotate the leg. Well, you can a little bit, but I mean, of course, when you're rotating it, you're only going to be able to rotate it to this much back and forth. I just don't really like the idea of doing that too much. And then she does have also boot articulation. Literally just a pin joint right there, allowing the leg to hinge back and forth. The other leg, I just have to tread lightly when I'm doing it, because every single time I've done that, yeah, the leg pops off. I can't really say it's all quality control issues. It could be just a case like the Batman, where I just happened to land, of all the figures I chose, there might have been 3 in the comic book store. I just happened to pick the Wonder Woman that has the wonky leg. I just happened to pick the Batman that has the wonky ankle. And those are things, of course, that could be specific to the figures themselves. I have to kind of look at the figure from top to bottom and gauge what would be a problem across the board. Maybe the paint, it wouldn't even be an issue across the board with every single figure release of Wonder Woman, but it certainly is the case here on mine. And I have to say, when it all adds up, at the end of the day, Wonder Woman might be one of the worst figures of the 3 Justice League releases that we've looked at so far. Now, viewer Devious had high hopes that Wonder Woman would have been the figure to come along and save this line so far. Don't get me wrong, I haven't disliked this line, but I will say that both the Batman and Superman that we've looked at so far, there's definitely room for improvement. So did Wonder Woman come along and save and change my opinions of this line so far? Sadly, no. In fact, I'd hate to be the one that brings the wet noodle to the conversation, but I have to say, in my own honest opinion, experiencing and having a time to spend with these figures, Wonder Woman easily, by far, and I don't even mean by a close competition here, by far she wins at being the worst figure of this line so far. She has a lot of problems going for her. I guess the biggest one, the most noticeable one right now, is the fact that she doesn't stand. So she has to lean on Batman. And I don't mean that in the figurative sense. I mean literally, she has to lean on Batman. She just doesn't have the means to stand on her own. With the very tiny little baby feet that they've given her, don't you think that would have invited the idea of maybe, oh, I don't know, giving her peg holes on the underside of her feet? I don't expect them to give us display stands, because up to this point they haven't done so far. But at the very least, go the route of giving the peg holes on the undersides of her boots like they did with Batman. So at least, if I had difficulty standing the figure, oh, well, I don't know, maybe, or if I wanted to put her in some sort of display purpose, I can't do anything because the figure has such tiny little hoof-like feet that I just can't get her to stand whatsoever. She has a lot of problems also with her sculpt, and I feel like perhaps if some of the paint was pulled back a little bit, or just painted properly, maybe the face would have been better than what it actually looks. There's a lot of really dark black around her eyes, and maybe that's the thing that's pulling me away from liking this figure more than I should. The sculpting of her hair is just passable. It gets a C. I really think the sculpting of the hair should have been a little more brought forward, and not so pulled back against her forehead. And then, of course, we have the real difficulty also with the way that she's constructed. A lot of these Justice League releases have some real poor construction issues. We already looked at the misaligned foot on Batman, and as it stands for Wonder Woman, she has this real wonky thigh. Now, that may only be just my figure. And again, I have to stress the idea that I'm only looking and gauging and reviewing these figures not from across the board, not painting a brush across every single figure that's been released of Wonder Woman for this line, but I have to base it solely on the experience of having the figure in front of me, and I have really bad constructed thighs on this particular Wonder Woman. It looks not only broken on the one side, but it causes every time that I'm moving the leg to that whole thigh piece, that whole section of her leg, just to pop right off. DC Collectibles really need to do a better job on this, and maybe this is a case where it's like the Batman the Animated Series. This is sort of the first time that they're approaching this line. Maybe we would have had to have waited a year from now, maybe a year and a half from now, maybe 2 years from now, before they start going back and reapproaching these figures again. Sort of with the DC Collectibles toy line, figure line, and collectible line now being in a state of limbo. We don't even know if they're even going to be doing any more of these. The likelihood of us getting any more upgrades to this Justice League release is probably slim to none. So unfortunately, this is the line we have to work with. And this particular line, I sort of feel, and I hate to say this word, I sort of feel like this line has been phoned in. If you disagree with me, let me know down below in the comment section. I always love reading your comments. Even if we have difference of opinions, the idea of being able to talk shop with other people that are passionate about this line of collecting figures, I always like to be able to go back and forth and just share opinions with you guys, the viewing audience. Also, if you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below. Of course, turning that bell notification on. And just as a friendly reminder, Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is, of course, where we have new videos popping up on this channel. We also like to do premieres. Viewer Devious is also over there as well, and Viewer Devious is also on my Patreon as well. He's one of my patrons on my Patreon page. So if you'd like to certainly see videos, I don't push this too often, but certainly if you'd like to see new videos coming up on this channel before everybody else does, consider the idea of also joining my Patreon page for $1, just as little as $1 a month. You get to see sneak peek, early peeks at these videos before everybody else does. I'll have the link to my Patreon page down below in the video description. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.